This is Hannibal here with a news update for everyone. The Rock and Roll Express is going to be competing for New Japan Pro Wrestling, from what I understand, for the first time ever, September 27th in Lowell, Massachusetts. I believe there's still tickets available for that show, but the 28th in New York and 29th in Philadelphia are sold out, from what I understand. So that's pretty cool. Good for them. One of the greatest tag teams of all time. Shauna Johnson says, God bless them. Or Shwana. I don't know how to say your name, pal. But yes, they're great people. They've done a couple interviews for the Hannibal TV, and I was supposed to interview Ricky Morton, a full shoot. I think it was in July. He was supposed to go to Syracuse for a Comic-Con autograph session, but no one bothered to tell me formally that whole session was canceled. A fan ended up telling me New Japan Pro Wrestling is also going to be coming back to California November 9th in San Jose and November 11th in Los Angeles at the same building PWG runs. In Los Angeles, it's come out that WWE is going to be changing around their pay-per-view policy. According to the Wrestling Observer, there is going to be a new format where not all the shows are going to be taped in the same building anymore. And I guess that's supposed to start at the Royal Rumble in January. They're going to move around a bit. And there might not be a takeover show anymore on these big major pay-per-view weekends. It might now be something called When Worlds Collide, a combination of TakeOver, 205 Live, and NXT UK, which is interesting. I think, from what I understand, NXT UK doesn't actually run that much. They do their tapings every month. They used to do house shows, but they stopped. And this is, from what I understand, from Renee Dupree, who was over in the UK. From what I understand, there's not regular everyday training like NXT in the US. Supposedly once a month or something, they're called to the UK training center and they all do a big hard training session. And also, I guess they're allowed to wrestle for independent companies out there as long as they're not streaming and as long as they're not wrestling wrestlers from a competitive company such as AEW or ROH. So, yeah, NXT UK, 205, and the original NXT. I'm not sure even if those are all combined for this new NXT show, if they could beat AEW from a star standpoint, because unless they add some more names, AEW is going to beat them in star power. So that's going to be interesting. And speaking of AEW, all of their wrestlers are finishing up with Indy bookings this month, other than the ones that I guess are signed to AEW, or it's not AEW, MLW, because of course they're still allowed to wrestle for MLW and they might have different agreements. And for the guys like Jon Moxley, who are also under New Japan contracts, of course, they're still going to be allowed to wrestle for New Japan. It is a little bit dangerous, AEW, letting wrestlers wrestle for other companies, because as we've seen with Jon Moxley, he got hurt wrestling for a company other than AEW, and he didn't compete on their last pay-per-view because of that. So that may have cost them some pay-per-view buys. From what I understand, they didn't get as many pay-per-view buys as the last pay-per-view, but they still did very, very well. Of course, the company's owned by a guy that's supposedly worth $6.8 billion. He has high production values, ability to sign name talent, and great advertising abilities as well. Lastly, one thing I just think of, 205 Live isn't doing that great from what I understand interest level wise. And AEW has a lot of wrestlers 205 and under. Actually, almost all of their wrestlers, other than maybe a handful of exceptions. So I wonder if that's going to play a factor at all in their viewership when they have regular shows and regular events. That'll be interesting to see. I don't know what today's people want for pro wrestling, what today's wrestling fans want. I'm not a wrestling fan. So I might represent 80s and 90s wrestling fans that prefer MMA now. And while AEW piques my interest, I'm curious to see what ratings they're going to get. Nothing has interests me that much from what I've seen of them. I actually watched Nyla Rose match today, the triple threat from Jacksonville, because a bunch of people were saying that the transgender wrestler there is a terrible wrestler. I didn't think she was that bad. The match was very spotty. She seemed blown up towards the end of the match, but I didn't think she was terrible. So, yeah, and I also saw on Steve Austin's Twitter account that I do follow, and he does chat with me on Twitter from time to time, that he delivered a stunner to AJ Styles, a man that I pinned twice in one night. So he did see action on Raw Monday night from Madison Square Garden. Do I still talk to Cody Rhodes? I've never actually talked to Cody Rhodes. The fan is asking me on there. Basically, the only communication I had with Cody Rhodes was as a promoter for Great North Wrestling. We tried to work on a few dates with him for Great North Wrestling while he was not under contract. It almost happened one of the times. He almost had a match with me last August in Hawkesbury, Ontario. That's why I did a promo for him in May of last year, because the agent was making it seem like he was going to be available that weekend. But unfortunately, Cody ended up getting an Arrow job that conflicted with that. And then soon after that, the whole AEW stuff started going down, and he wasn't taking any more indie bookings. I know he's done indie bookings since, but those are through friends of his personal favors. So I've never met Cody Rhodes. I don't know him at all. But I am disappointed we never got to have that match, because I think it would have been a good match, and he would have met me that way. So, yeah, have a good night, everyone. That is the last of the wrestling news for today. And do I ever wrestle in the States? That's the last question I'll answer from Big Lou here. Hannibal TV is going to be covering the Messina, New York Fight for the Mind event at the St. Lawrence Center this October. I think it's October 26th. Shane Douglas is going to be there. The Blood Hunter is going to be on that card. What's his name? Just Incredible, who I'm going to be doing a shoot interview with. Buff Bagwell is also going to be on that card, and it's to raise money for Alzheimer's.